Well, this is a slightly unusual episode of Short Answers in some ways, because we're filming this on the day of the Queen's funeral. And in fact, an hour or so before coming here to film this episode, myself and my colleagues at SOLAS, we were gathered along with 3 billion people, not all of us in the SOLAS office, but some of us in the SOLAS office, and others around the world to watch the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. And I, over the couple of weeks or so since the Queen has died, I've been struck by a number of things actually about her life and impact. And one of the things that's really struck me is the way that so many people have been deeply drawn to this life of service and duty that I think Queen Elizabeth II typified in all that she did. I have friends who are not particular fans of the royal family who still say they would have been deeply impressed by the example that she set. And in fact, famously, I think it was 21 years old or something close to that when her father, King George VI, died, and when she became queen, she made this commitment that she would serve the country, that she would commit her life to duty, and she followed that promise for 70 years. In fact, up to 2 days before her death, she was still carrying out her duties. And it struck me as I've looked at that the question about why it is that we are drawn to someone who serves others, who has that sense of duty. Why is that so attractive to us? Now, the interesting thing is, we probably may not have stopped and thought about the fact that the idea that a leader, a king, a queen, a president, a prime minister, should commit themselves to serving their people, that's an unusual idea in history, maybe something that many of you haven't stopped and thought about. Imagine we were to jump into a time machine, go back in time 2,000 years to the height of the Roman Empire, and you were to grab one of the Caesars, grab Nero perhaps, and you were to say to him, look, hey mate, the way you're using your power for personal gain and to lord it over others and throwing your weight around, that's totally wrong. Don't you understand that leadership is about service and duty and putting others first? He would look at you like you were stark, staring bonkers, and probably actually throw you to the lions in the Colosseum. And for most of human history, and in fact in many civilizations around the world today, just think of Russia and Putin, for example, what has happened is when men, predominantly men, but often women too, have got their hands on power, they have simply used that for their own ends, to feather their own nest, to gain power and influence and glory and all of these other things. But somehow, in large parts, particularly of the West, we have got into our heads that is actually completely upside down, and rather the idea of leadership is all about service. Where on earth did we get that idea from? Well, in the funeral service for the Queen today, it was made totally clear, because the Queen was well known as being very public in her Christian faith. She was absolutely clear that she was a follower of Jesus. Jesus said, "I have not come to be served, but to serve, and to give my life as a ransom for many." And the idea of leadership as service is a profoundly Christian idea. And sometimes we can forget just how saturated Western culture is, even global culture actually, in the life and the impact of Jesus Christ. And I find it interesting today that when we criticize political leaders for misusing power, even if we're not Christian, we are actually being profoundly Christian in the way that we're judging them. Interesting, eh? But something else struck me during the Queen's funeral, and the other thing that struck me is that death is the great leveller. You know, yes, that funeral had lots of pomp and circumstance because here was someone with a lot of power and authority and fame and celebrity, but ultimately she faced death. And it doesn't matter if you are the most powerful person in the world, if you're a king or a queen or a monarch. It doesn't matter if you're one of the richest people in the world, if you're a Bill Gates or a Jeff Bezos. It doesn't matter if you're one of the poorest people or the most insignificant person in the world. All of us will one day face death. All of us one day have a grave and a coffin waiting for us. That could lead to despair. It could lead to the conclusion it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do because the same end awaits you, whatever you do with your life. Or it could lead you to take the words of Jesus that were again quoted in the funeral service this morning seriously, because Jesus also said, he said, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who trusts in me will never die." And at the center of the Christian faith is this tremendous promise that if we lay down all the things that we could grab hold of, money and power, authority, if we place our trust in Jesus, the one who has been through the grave and out the other side, he promises to lead us on that journey too, through the grave and out the other side into an eternal life of joy and happiness in his presence forever. The Queen staked her life and her reign on those promises. And the great thing is Jesus makes that promise not just to monarchs and kings and presidents, but he offers that promise and that invitation of true and eternal life to each one of us. He offers it to me, and he offers it to you.